Dear students, I am Dr. Manish Singh. I am from Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia National Law University, Lucknow. I will discuss a module on socio-legal research. What is socio-legal study? A socio-legal study is a study of interdisciplinary approach to analyze the law, legal phenomena and relationships between these and wider society. Both theoretical and empirical work is included, and perspectives and methodologies are drawn from the humanities as well as the social sciences. The learning outcomes of this module is to make you understand the fundamentals of socio-legal research and what it is comprised of, to let you understand the utility of socio-legal research, to identify the potential areas of socio-legal research, to introduce the socio-legal field, to understand the various political science, sociological, anthropological and economic approaches to socio-legal research, and lastly to introduce the socio-legal research methods. The major topics covered under this module are introduction to socio-legal research, what socio-legal research is comprised of, utility of socio-legal research, areas of socio-legal research, general introduction to socio-legal research, introduction to socio-legal field, political science approaches to socio-legal research, sociological approaches to the socio-legal research, anthropological approaches to the socio-legal research, economic approaches to the socio-legal research, introduction to research methods, and finally the summary of what we have learned so far. What is socio-legal research? Socio-legal research has its theoretical and methodological base in the social sciences. It seeks to understand law as a social phenomena. It can be clearly distinguished from other traditions of legal research, such as the black letter tradition. Its methodology is predominantly empirical and social theoretical rather than doctrinal. Law is not merely a black letter, rather it is an instrument of social control. It originates and functions in a society and for society. The need for a new law, a change in existing law, and the difficulties that surround its implementation cannot be studied in a better manner without the sociological inquiry. Law is an important variable in any social investigation. Researchers cannot do anything in sociological research if they do not know at least the basics of law, legal system, and law institutions. Similarly, a legal researcher cannot do justice to the legal inquiry if he does not know about the mechanics of socio-legal research methods. In a planned development of the society, law is playing the role of a catalyst to help in the process of social change. In a dynamic society, a legal research must switch over to multi or interdisciplinary approach as to legal problems, as these are connected with social, political, economic and psychological issues. The key elements of socio-legal research are to undertake theoretical and empirical analysis of the nature of law and its relationship to society and the state in the context of rapidly changing world, to analyze both historical and contemporary of the social, economic and political factors leading to the development of the law and legal process, an examination of the operation of the law in formal contexts, for example the courts, or in informal context, for example the law office, an analysis of the process of decision making by those responsible for the administration of the law, and lastly an analysis of the experience of those affected by the process of law. The utility of socio-legal research are following. Socio-legal research can be useful in formulating new theories. Socio-legal research gives clue to the decision making. Socio-legal research gives a lead and molds public opinion. Socio-legal research is useful in framing new laws. Socio-legal research is useful in finding root causes of crimes and differential behavior among different tribes and races. Socio-legal research provides the knowledge which widens the outlook of legislators, executives, and judiciary. Socio-legal research paves the way for broad-based social reforms. Areas of socio-legal research. We all know that law and society are interlinked. Socio-legal research is our interdisciplinary approach which extends into the fields of all social sciences. Professor Upendra Bakshi proposed the socio-legal research in the following vital areas. First, mapping of Indian legal system and formal and informal legal systems. Secondly, studies on the beneficiaries and victims of administration of justice. Thirdly, law and poverty. Fourthly, compensatory discrimination of a section of people such as scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Fifthly, study of legal system in connection with cultural, social, and national legal systems. We can add some more specific areas of socio-legal research such as directive principles of Constitution of India and effect of their implementation, criminal tendency in some tribes and sections in India, tax imposition and social change, international economic law and the increase of international trade, white collar crimes and their impact on society, labor laws and the welfare of the working classes, land reforms acts and the social and economic change, provision of contributions to political parties in company law and its implications, sex offences and their effect on social life, feeble-mindedness and criminality, and many more of the like. The different approaches to socio-legal research. A socio-legal approach may be seen to occupy a space between two extremes of methodological spectrum. At one end, a strict doctrinal approach relies predominantly on self-informed analysis of legislation and judicial decisions from the superior courts. Approaches at the other end, such as critical legal studies and economic analysis of law, are tuned to the concerns, theory, and informants of external perspectives. While contextual analysis is increasingly the norm in legal scholarship, external informants are essential to a socio-legal approach. The socio-legal lens widens to observe operational and everyday legal situations, and diverse textual sources, disciplinary and cultural perspectives are considered. Now a brief discussion about a socio-legal field. H.L.A. Hart's concept of law offers an accessible analysis of a mature legal order which is attuned to law's social character and its role in ordering a society. The key concepts in Hart's account of law are social rules, of which legal rules are one kind, and the acceptance of law by officials. The key concepts in Hart's account of law are social rules, of which legal rules are one kind, and the acceptance of law by officials. It examines the notion of a social rule, what it means to accept a rule, and the rule of recognition as the master rule of a legal order, the role of officials in a legal order, and Hart's contrast between officials and citizens. At this point, the question arises as to whether there are other systems of law besides state law, and if so, why prominence is given to state law. This leads to questions about legal pluralism, by which is meant different legal orders existing side by side or overlapping, or one dominating another. Understanding law and legal system as a social formation is the first part of a law and society approach. The second is the interrelationship between law and the other aspects of society. One issue is how law as a system of social rule interacts with other system of social rules, such as those of civil associations, religious bodies, private institutions, family networks, and so on. What happens when legal rules conflict with or try to change other networks of rules? Here the notion of social sphere is developed and put to use in explaining the interrelationship. In developing this analysis, law needs to be broken down into different kinds of laws, such as criminal, civil, constitutional, and regulation. The last issue is about the effectiveness of law. If a state law is explained and justified on the basis that it has certain social advantages over systems of social rules, then the assumption is that law is effective in influencing behavior. Here notions of implementation, compliance, and enforcements come into picture. Now, what is the political science approach? The first approach is about legal mobilization. There exists a complex relationship between law and social movements. Social movement actors use a wide range of legal tactics, including lobbying, litigation, and administrative advocacy in their campaign for social, political, and economic change. On one hand, movements rely on rights to frame their grievances, to define and reinforce collective identity, and to mobilize activists. The realm of the law can provide social reform campaigns. The realm of the law can provide social reform campaigns. The realm of the law can provide social reform campaigns with opportunities to influence policy, regulation, and enforcement practices. On the other hand, the use of legal strategies and reliance on lawyers can exert a conservative pressure on social movements, channeling protest and other forms of radical action into conventional political and legal institutions. These tensions, inherent in legal mobilization activity, have raised a number of theoretical and empirical questions. What are the conditions under which individual and collective actors will turn to the courts to pursue political or social goals? What is the best way for researchers interested in social movements to determine social movement success within the courts, within the policy realm, and beyond? What is the impact of legal mobilization on a social movement's collective identity? The literature on the mobilization of law by social movements, by providing a bottom-up perspective, draws on complements and provides alternatives to court-centric studies of social reform. The second approach concentrates on judicial review and human rights. Political science approaches to the study of the law particularly explores how political science can be applied to study the role of courts in protecting human rights. The third approach concerns itself with the role of courts in democracy. The judiciary is a high-impact institution. When functioning properly, it profoundly affects social well-being, facilitating economic development, and shielding the individual from arbitrary state power. In countries transitioning from authoritarian rule to democracy, a judiciary empowered to vindicate the constitution is by consensus regarded as essential to democratic consolidation. Given the important role courts are believed to play, it is not surprising that sociologists and political scientists have in recent decades paid ever more attention to judicial affairs. One post-World War II trend identified, documented, and analyzed by a diverse subgroup of these investigators stands out for its ubiquity, namely the worldwide expansion of both domestic and supranational judicial power. Informed by a paradigm that blames the vulnerabilities of parliamentary democracy for World War II and its horrors, many have come to see the judiciary as a check on the alleged evils of untrammeled democracy. In one jurisdiction after another, even in the most conservative and authoritarian civil law traditions, courts have been empowered or have empowered themselves to strike down with finality statutes of parliament and even plebiscites which they interpret to be unconstitutional. The judicial assumption of power not merely to nullify democratically enacted legislation, but also to legislate new general norms in all areas of life has taken judges far beyond their classical function of reviewing cases where the rights of persons are in jeopardy. A range of theoretical questions and long-standing controversies can be seen in this, like what ought to be the role of courts in a democratic society? Ought judges to intervene in policy processes, or should they confine themselves to deciding the guilt or innocence of individual persons? Is judicial supremacy incompatible with the democratic ideal of popular sovereignty? If activism becomes excessive, how and by whom ought it to be curtailed? Do any alternatives to the judicialization of politics exist that are more compatible with democracy yet do not compromise the rule of law? Now we shall discuss the sociological approaches to the socio-legal research. The first approach places law in the socio-legal and socio-cultural context. This explores the way in which the framework of cultural relativism can assist the exploration of law and a social construct. The factors affecting that process includes historically formed traditions, existing institutional settings, and contemporary changes. Legal cultures affect the development process in transitional societies. As far as methodological issues are concerned, there are relative merits of using qualitative and quantitative methods to gather research data. The second approach asks the question, can a law control? The law acts as a would-be instrument of control, demonstrating the social and legal factors that influence its implementation and enforcement, and addressing the problematic notion of compliance in the areas of business regulation. There can also be alternative perspectives as well, and researchers shall focus on thinking outside the box in order to inform conventional wisdom and to formulate perspectives and new questions for research. Now to discuss the anthropological approach, which means generally the law beyond government. How shall we understand the different types and systems of law that occur throughout the world? By considering radically different examples of law beyond government, what conclusions can we draw about the nature of law itself? There are examples of the approaches that anthropologists have taken to law in other societies and cultures, including informal systems of law and dispute resolution. There exist examples of cultural specificity of legal concepts and models. The research methods typically used by anthropologists are participant observation, involving long periods of intensive and focused but essentially unstructured fieldwork. Now the economic approach. It involves application of an economic perspective to socio-legal studies. Inspired by the capability approach of the economist Amartya Sen and by the work of political philosopher Nussbaum, the justification and effectiveness of socio-legal norms can be revisited. The capability approach has been developed in the field of welfare economics and particularly aims at promoting justice and human development. People's capabilities might be enhanced by human rights. The research in socio-legal sphere identifies ways in which capability could be operationalized within policy, including corporate responsibility, financial services, and consumer protection. Now a discussion about the research methods. This part provides a general survey of the social and philosophical roots of the various techniques available for data collection and link the ideas involved to a student's initial review of the literature on how to develop a viable research question. Particular attention shall be paid to the contested issues in social science. Particular attention shall be paid to the contested issues in social science research, such as the following. What are we trying to achieve when we are engaged in research activities? Do qualitative and quantitative approaches have equal claims to be considered empirical? When we decide on which methods to use in collecting the information, we need What assumptions are we making and what do they imply? What philosophical approaches to these assumptions rest upon? What do the differences between the various approaches entail for the interpretation of the nature of knowledge and truth? How do these differences apply at the ultimate stage when research findings are used as evidence to support an argument and the completed text of the thesis must evaluate the validity of the initial research design? Finally, having surveyed the dynamic interplay between theoretical concepts and empirical data, researcher has to focus upon the importance of constructing a conceptual framework that will ensure the consistency and integrity of a research project. Quantitative methods in socio-legal research. The use of quantitative methods in socio-legal scholarship is ever growing. There is a growing trend towards empirical legal studies where empirical is defined as large N or quantitative methods. Participant observation. Participant observation is a type of research that could be regarded as diametrically opposed to the collection of quantitative data. This relates not only to the methods but to the types of questions that can be answered, the research design and the subsequent analysis of data. The researcher shall keep in mind the nature of ethnography and participant observation and consider how his or her research project may be placed on the scale between quantitative and ethnographic methodologies. A case study regarding about participant observation would help and places the researcher in a position to anticipate whether he or she might encounter any similar practical issues in their research. Interviews. The researcher shall focus upon conducting semi-structured and unstructured interviews. As to how to do it tips, it can be drawn from experience in the field. The researcher shall be mindful of the distinction between individual style and of good or bad practice. Analyzing qualitative data. Qualitative data pose particular challenges for combining creativity and rigor in their analysis. Moreover, given that qualitative, in contrast to quantitative data, are often voluminous and unstructured, critical reflection of techniques for managing and interpreting such data is important. The techniques for the analysis of qualitative data are not theoretical tools, but should be located within theoretical assumptions about how the social world could be understood and researched. Finally comes the question of research ethics. Pertinent ethical issues may arise during socio-legal research. It is important to consider ethical issues and ethical thinking in social studies. This discussion has made you understand the fundamentals of socio-legal research and the components of which it is comprised of. It makes you appreciate the utility of socio-legal research. It helps you identify the potential areas of socio-legal research. It introduces the learner to the socio-legal field. It also helps the students understand the various approaches to socio-legal research from the perspective of sociology, anthropology, and economy. And it also introduces the students to various socio-legal research methods. Now let us recapitulate what we have learned so far. The socio-legal approach may be seen to occupy a space between two extremes of a methodological spectrum. At one end, a strict doctrinal approach relies predominantly on self-informed analysis of legislation and judicial decisions from the superior courts. Approaches at the other end, such as critical legal studies and economic analysis of law, are tuned to the concerns, theory, and informants of external perspectives. While contextual analysis is increasingly the norm in legal scholarship, external informants are essential to a socio-legal approach. The socio-legal lens widens to observe operational and everyday legal situations and diverse textual sources, disciplinary and cultural perspectives are considered. Thank you.